Hi, welcome to this Expat Live. My name is Amanda Maxime, and as a certified coach, I help high-achieving expats find more fulfillment and happiness in their global lives. Because while life abroad is often amazing, it is not only rainbows and butterflies, as all experienced expats know. In this Expat Live, I open up space for all facets of life abroad and what you can do to thrive in it. And to support you in your personal, professional, and geographic life transitions, I share tips, tell relatable stories, and connect with fellow expats. Whether you've just moved abroad or you are a seasoned expat, this Expat Life is your place to find real understanding and to grow from the inside out. Enjoy the show. If you are an expat currently at crossroads, making a big life decision or wondering what's next, and you have been telling yourself, I just need a little bit more time, I just need more clarity, I just need more information before I can decide, this episode is for you. Because I see something happening again and again, and I think it's the biggest mistake that high-functioning expats can make. And I want to help you see that so you can stop making that mistake as well. And by the way, when I say high-functioning expats, I totally mean myself as well, because I made this mistake until last winter, actually. So let's start changing that. And by the way, hello from Florida, where I'm currently at. I'm recording this from my hotel room. It is incredibly hot outside, but I'm very happy to be here. I'm here with my partner. We went to a World Cup game last Sunday, and we're spending the rest of the week here. And it's been such a nice week for me so far. I've been very busy because I'm launching the co-pilot in a couple of days, so there's lots of work to do. I haven't seen much outside of the hotel room, the swimming pool and the breakfast area and the Starbucks nearby, but hopefully in a couple of days that's going to change. So welcome again. And this episode is really for those stuck at crossroads who are so stuck in their head and can't seem to decide what is right for them. But I'd also say this episode is valuable for people who are perhaps not facing a very concrete crossroads right now, but who have a tendency to say these things that I just said in the beginning, like, I just need more time, more clarity, more information before I can decide or before I can move. Because I think this might also be your biggest mistake as well, something that's costing you a lot and you're not seeing it. And I want to talk about that today. But first, you are probably a smart person, you're strategic, and thinking through things has served you well. It got you the career that you have, it got you across borders, this beautiful, solid life that you have built for yourself in another country. You've navigated complicated things, and it makes sense that you apply that same strategy to your crossroads decision that is in front of you. I'm just going to assume that you have that in front of you right now. A crossroads like, should I stay or should I go? Is this the career that I want to keep on doing? Is this relationship right for me? Or perhaps all of the above, because they're all so intertwined together, right, as an expat. One decision for your career is not just one decision, because when you start to think about, do I want to stay in this job and in this career, almost automatically you start to wonder, do I even want to stay in this country? Because maybe the job was the reason why you moved there or stayed there. And if you don't want to stay in that country, well, then where should you go? Is it time to go back home? Your friends and family would love that. But do you have the same career opportunities there? You're not quite sure. Maybe it's time for a third country, but then you have to start all over from scratch again. And it took you so long to build the friendships that you have right now. And will you find a husband, a wife when you're in your 30s and you want to have kids? And before you know it, you're stuck in this web of options and decisions and choices. And you can't really see what is the right thing to do, because one decision leads to more questions or has impact on the other areas of your life. And if you're a bit like my clients, you want to do things well and you want to choose well. And so if you can't really see where one decision is leading you to, it feels more scary to go ahead because you can't foresee where everything else is going to go. And so what I see happening here with so many high-functioning expats who are great at what they do in their career, and like I said, they have the whole solid international life. And actually, most of these people make $1 million decisions, or maybe not $1 million, but like thousands of dollars decisions at work, and when it comes to deciding what they want for themselves, all of a sudden, this is way more complicated than doing this at work. So decision making in their job, no problem. Decision making for themselves, oof, this is where it gets hard. And like I said, so many things are tied together and you want to choose well. So what happens with most people, and this is where the mistake starts, they wait. They wait for more clarity. They wait for external things to change. They wait for more information. They wait for, I don't know what they wait for, mostly these three things. And waiting feels responsible and waiting feels safe. And it feels like the sensible thing to do, the wise thing to do. Because when you can't really foresee where one decision is taking you, or when one decision doesn't have mostly pros, like all your decisions have different pros and cons, but they all weigh pretty much the same. So it's very hard for you to choose. There's not just one right decision that pops up. In those two situations, it feels safer to just wait. Because here's the thing, this is the assumption that most of these expats live in, and I lived in it myself as well, is that one move can change everything. And if, like I said, if you don't choose well, it can completely break what took you so long to build, the thing that you're so proud of, the life that you built. That is the assumption. I personally don't believe that's the case because I think you're smart and strategic and flexible enough, and you have all kinds of other qualities to pivot again later on in life. But this is the assumption that most people subconsciously have. One move can change everything. So therefore, I must choose wisely. My decision must be the right one. And so when you're stuck in that web of options, you can't see the right thing, and therefore waiting feels safer. One of my clients inside the Copilot once put it this way. She said, I feel like I'm living in a lot of fog. I can't see anything. And so therefore it feels safer to just not move at all, because then at least I cannot knock anything over. And that makes total sense. I totally get it. And like I said, I've been in it myself as well. But here is the mistake, because by doing that, by telling yourself, okay, it's just safer to wait and see, you're putting yourself in the expat waiting room. Now, I spoke a lot about the expat waiting room already, so I'm not going to repeat it, but it's the place where you live a comfortable enough life. It isn't bad, it isn't dramatic, there's nothing pressuring you or urging you to go. Life is pretty decent. You can ride it out for a while. But you also know this isn't my long-term place. And so there is where you start waiting for something to change, or for clarity, or for some opportunity, or whatever. And that expat waiting room is a very tricky room because it is okay, in my opinion, to spend a couple of months there. Like, not every season of our life is a banger and we go full steam ahead. Sometimes we need to be in that waiting room and just wait a little bit for the dust to settle or for something else. But I think we shouldn't spend any time more than 6 months there. I think 3 to 6 months at most. However, I ran a masterclass in the last couple of months, and I always asked them, how long have you been in the expat waiting room? And it surprised me and it didn't surprise me. But the overwhelming majority said that they were in the expat waiting room for more than a year. And it depended on the masterclass, but I think on average it was about 60 to 75% that spent more than a year in the expat waiting room. And there was also a large part that spent more than 6 months in the waiting room. And you know, I've always lived my life this way. Like, if I want something, I go get it. I want my life to be nice and fun and authentic to me. But ever since I lost 2 friends at an age too young, lost both my parents, I've realized life is short and I don't want to waste any minute on it by just waiting for things to happen. And like I said, of course, we have to spend some time in the expat waiting room sometimes, but it shouldn't become like a semi-permanent destination. It shouldn't turn into the status quo that we then just unintentionally accept. Because I think our global life, and it's anyone's life, but especially our very privileged global life, is too precious to keep living it from the expat waiting room. So don't spend too much time in the expat waiting room. But what is the mistake that most high-functioning expats make here? That is that waiting may feel like the most sensible thing, and waiting also feels like doing nothing. It feels like pressing pause. But, it is not a pause because the clock is running. And you not making a decision is still a decision, because you not making a decision on the options or simply on moving ahead means that you're choosing the status quo. And sometimes, I've seen this also a couple of times in the Copilot, it is okay to choose what you already have, what you already built, but it needs to be in an intentional, very active, chosen choice, if you know what I mean. Like, you need to double down on what you have and you want it to be intentional. But by not making a decision, it's not an intentional choice. You're simply letting the status quo prolong without you actively choosing it. And it's just a continuation of the status quo where nothing really changes, but subconsciously you are choosing it. And this is, I really believe, the biggest mistake that you can make, because while you think you are pressing pause, your life continues and you're losing time. And again, don't get me wrong, if this is a couple of months, no worries. But if you've been in the expat waiting room for more than a year, you need to listen. Because there is a price that you pay in the expat waiting room or by pressing pause. For example, the mental energy that you spend replaying the same scenarios, making the same pros and cons list again and again. I used to make this mistake. I would go to bed tired and then whoop, my brain would go on. And I would have a couple of scenarios that, I could choose from, or that I could pursue, or that could happen. And because I was putting myself in the expat waiting room, I didn't actively choose one. And so I just kept going through all these scenarios again and again. And if I had done scenario 1, 2, 3, I would just start over again. And that was so much mental energy that I spent on something that, quite frankly, I don't want to waste any more time and energy on. You might be doing the same thing. It is not just the mental energy that you're leaking and paying the price for. It could also be, well, let's take away the could. It is probably also that you're undercommitting to the life that you're actually in. While you could live into 3 different futures, or while you're doing that, you're forgetting about your actual life that quietly runs underneath it. And so while you're leaking that mental energy, you're undercommitting to your current life. You're not buying furniture, because if you're going to move again, you're for sure not going to pay for a container yourself, unless you're a diplomat or some well-paid person in the private sector. But if you're going to move in a year, or that's been one of the scenarios you've been thinking about, you're not going to invest in expensive furniture. You might also not be signing leases for any time longer than a couple months or a year, or whatever the minimum requirement is. One of the people inside the Copilot was actually doing this before she joined, obviously. You might also not be making plans for next summer, like big trips with your local friends, because you might be elsewhere next summer and perhaps you want to explore a different region. Something that I also wasn't doing sometimes, I wasn't signing up for a year-long gym membership, because I thought, I'm going to be wasting money because I'm not going to be in this city for the next year. I also sometimes saw like really nice opportunities to do volunteering work or something else, like something that my heart really wanted to do. But I thought, I'm going to be gone in a couple of months. I'm not going to be in this city. So I don't want to commit to something and have people count on me and then have to disappoint them. That's not what I want to do. So you're undercommitting to the life that you are actually in. And this is an indirect of this mistake as well, because while you are not super happy where you are, leaking your energy, you're also not committing to the things that actually could make it better for you, and therefore the situation gets even worse. You're not super enjoying your life where you are right now. You might also be missing career windows and relationship moments because you're like half in, half out. I definitely had my fair share of that, where others couldn't really understand where I was at, even though for me it was clear. They saw me half in, half out, so they didn't dare to go ahead and commit. You might recognize this as I say this. And there's something that is also less tangible, something that maybe you only realize after a couple of years, but there the effect of this mistake that you're making is one that happens inside of you, and there can be this slow erosion of your self-trust. Because every month that passes without a decision makes it harder for you to believe that you can decide. In the past, you've made all these courageous decisions and took brave action by moving abroad, but somewhere down the line, it feels now like you lost those qualities because you stopped doing it, and you start to wonder, do I still have what it takes? Do I still have what it takes to start all over from scratch again? Because maybe it was hard for you where you were. Or maybe it just took you a long while and you feel like, oh, I'm not quite sure if I have it in me to do it again. So there's this slow erosion of your self-trust that you can figure your next chapter out. And that is such a waste, because I want you to see how many fantastic qualities you have inside of you. I want you to remember those, because these are the things that you need that can help you, that you need for your next chapter. And also you might recognize yourself saying like, oh, I've been in this phase for longer than I expected. I was coming here for just 2 years, or for this person, or for that thing, and now I'm still here. And that sentence can quietly grow, and it doesn't really, it showcases that it's not really your intentional decision, that time just continued. And I want you to see with all these things that there is a price that you're paying, and that waiting is a decision. And I think it happens to be the most expensive one. Yes, like I said, I'm gonna repeat myself again. Sometimes it makes sense to wait. If a lot of things happen to you personally or professionally, maybe you need to dust to settle. But I want you to see where that thought or phrase has become an excuse for you to hide behind. Where you are telling yourself, let me just wait and see, because it's probably safer than moving now at all. If you've been saying that for longer than 6 months, you need to start changing this, because this is the most expensive mistake that you're making. And here is what I want you to understand as well. I don't want you to just see that, okay, this is a mistake that you're making, but what should you actually be doing instead? Because what I've seen is that most expats are waiting for, I don't know, more certainty or more data, more information, but also for circumstances to shift. And I am so guilty of it myself. I've shared this story here, maybe in parts. I just posted something on Instagram about it, which really resonated. It was quite surprising. But a year ago, I felt incredibly stuck. I was living a really nice life on the outside. I still have a thriving global coaching practice. I have great international friendships, and I was taking so many trips. I was traveling every 2 weeks basically, or 4 weeks. But I also knew that I wasn't happy in where I was, in The Hague, in that chapter of my life. Now, I'm not going to repeat my whole story, but my parents passed away. It was the pandemic, breakups. It was not the nicest chapter I was in, but one that was necessary for me to grow. And I'm pretty grateful now that I'm on the other side of it. But I was also realizing this chapter here, like, I'm not quite happy. At the moment, I couldn't really see that this was a chapter that I could proactively close. And so while I knew, okay, I want to move abroad again, I want something else, I want to go to another country, I was pretty much ready to go, but I was waiting for something external to happen first. I was waiting for a visa. I was waiting for some opportunity. I was waiting for my future husband. I was waiting for something. I was waiting for something to change first on the outside so that I could respond to it and then move ahead. And here is what I realized last winter in November, as I was talking to some friends about it, and I had this meta experience of seeing myself say the same thing again and again. I realized nothing is changing. Everything is frozen. I'm just waiting. And while I was waiting, my life continued. I got older. I still didn't have a relationship. I was freezing my ex at that time because I thought, well, I need to build in some security for myself. I was living a life that I wasn't fully happy in. I kept hearing this song from London Grammar in my head, I'm wasting my young years. And I really thought that because I thought, I'm not settled down. I don't have kids. I have energy. I want to expand. I want to, live my life fully. I'm not yet ready for this pretty small life that I'm living right now. And I was just waiting for something to change, and nothing changed. And I was paying the price for it. with not fantastic days, with a life that just didn't fully felt like mine, I thought I'm meant for something more, and why isn't it happening? And my trips always gave me this, boost that I needed, and I felt alive again, and that's probably what you also saw on social media. And it wasn't like my regular life was bad and dramatic. No, not at all. But it was perhaps a 6 out of 10, and I like to aim for a 9 out of 10, because that's who I am. And so I was paying the price by waiting, until I realized I can actually already close this chapter without knowing what is next. And I remembered a constellation exercise that I did 2 years prior, or 2 years ago now, I'm not quite sure, but it was a constellation with trauma parts actually. And I was in the constellation, and then people were representing different parts of me. If you don't know what constellation is, it comes from systemic work. I also infuse it in my own work. It's a fantastic tool to get to the heart of things, the bottom of things, without your rational brain taking over. And in that constellation, at some point, everything and everyone was just frozen, and all I could think was, can someone please jump in and take over? Because I don't know what to do. And I realized back in November that my life was playing out this constellation that I had seen happening a while before that. And I realized everything is frozen, and I keep waiting for something to change, and nothing is changing. And I have the data now. This is something that we do inside my world in the Copilot. We gather data. I realized I have the data now to really see that waiting doesn't solve anything. Waiting doesn't change anything in this case for me, because nothing has changed so far. And while waiting felt a little bit safer, waiting for like a destination to aim for, or a goal or whatever, a dot on the horizon to aim for, I saw the data and I saw nothing has changed with my current approach. And I've tried that for almost 2 years. So I think the data is telling me it's time for another approach. And this is when I realized I can actually close this chapter. I can close this door without knowing what is next. And instead of waiting for this external thing to take over, like in a constellation, I realized I need to break the pattern within myself. Because once it's an event, if it happens more often, it's a pattern. Having seen that play out in that constellation, in some relationships, and now in my general life, I was like, this is a pattern that I need to break, and I need to do it on the inside. I'm not going to find my answers on the outside. So I decided to get into action, and I really felt and trusted, if I start moving, then things can get into motion as well. Let me get into action first so that the universe can respond to me. And so I did. And I started moving, and the results have been insane. Because in just a couple of months, my business is blowing up. I've been featured in different international media, not just Business Insider, but also the HuffPost, on a French website, Courrier International. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it. I had no idea I was being featured in it. I'm moving to Mexico in September because once I decided to start moving, I had space to welcome things in, and the answer came to me instead of trying to find it desperately. I'm now in a relationship that I once prayed for, and it's everything I wanted and a whole lot more. And I just feel really good. I have peace of mind again. I don't go back to the Netherlands on the plane thinking, oh, I'm going back to my prison and what do I want to do? And it feels horrible. I don't want to be here. No. It's so calm in my head right now. I'm busy with work, but it's not those bigger questions of where am I going with my life? Will it ever work out for me? Where's my next chapter going to take place? Will I find a person for a relationship there? All of that is gone. The mental noise is gone. It is just peace of mind. It is full trust, full confidence, and full calmness. And this is what I want you to feel as well. And this is what's on the other side of you. The most expensive mistake that you're making is waiting. And you'll see that once you get into action, you will find the clarity. And that was my whole point of starting this personal story, that clarity doesn't come from waiting or thinking about it more. And this is something that we think subconsciously, that it works that way, Because like I said, your brain is your biggest asset. It got you this beautiful life that you live today. It gets you far at work, but you can't think your way to clarity. Clarity is not going to arrive the more you think about it or the more time you give it. Clarity comes from taking action. We are, as I said, in the Copilot, we are gathering data. You will only know if you're walking on the right path if you actually start walking on it. And waiting in front of a crossroads is not going to show you the way. Walking on that path is going to show you the way with the trust that you can pivot at any given moment. Because with that trust, that will allow you to actually move forward. So these decisions that you have about where to live, what work to pursue, who to build a life with, they aren't purely intellectual or logical. They are emotional, they are layered, and they are also deeply personal. What might work for me won't work for you, and vice versa. You have to make your own decisions in this first, and this starts with understanding yourself first. And you can't think your way out of this. You need to have a different approach so that clarity can land for you. And you do that one way, the biggest way, by getting into action, by starting to move. And you see that that is the opposite of waiting. So my advice to you, don't let this stay abstract for yourself. And maybe you want to see, okay, I'm realizing now that I have been waiting, and I thought I was postponing a decision, but now I'm realizing not making a decision is also a decision. So let me put some real numbers on it. So let's say for you, another year in the expat waiting room is a year of 3 a.m. thoughts that don't resolve and that will cost you or are costing you your sleep. Conversations with friends or your family that go in circles and stay exactly where they started, meaning that you're not going to enjoy that time with your friends so much because you're going to get tired of your own bullshit, basically. Another year in the expat waiting room means you're not being fully present in the life that you've built because there's one foot in, one foot out, and you're maybe not quite sure whether that other foot is standing, so it's making you wobble. There are relationships that carry the weight of unresolved questions. It is tension that is being brought into the relationship, whether you talk about it or not. It is there. And maybe also things like you are postponing creating a home, you're not investing because you might leave. And so your home should be your safe anchor. And if you're not investing in it, are you really making that your safe anchor? And the irony here is the thing that you're doing to protect yourself by waiting, because that feels safer, you're protecting yourself from making a mistake. It actually is the mistake. I'm going to repeat that. The thing you're doing to protect yourself from making a mistake is the mistake. You think you are not choosing, so you can't go wrong, but you are actually choosing something that you're not actively choosing. And this is the price that you're paying for it. So the risk really isn't making the wrong move. Most of your decisions are reversible, or you can pivot. The real risk here, in my opinion, is spending another year waiting for certainty that was never going to arrive that way anyway. And you don't need to have it all figured out to start, because like I said, clarity comes from moving with intention, not from standing still. And I hope that is also your biggest takeaway of this episode. And if you recognize yourself in everything that I'm saying, or you get activated by how I'm sharing it, and you're like, okay, Amanda, I want to tackle it, step inside my world, because I am opening doors to the Copilot again. And this is probably going to be the last time this summer, as I need to spend some time on my own move, and I need to put my attention and focus there, plus on the existing clients that I have. And I personally think that summer is such a wonderful season, if you live in the Northern Hemisphere, to really take a step back and to assess your life. It is a period in the year where we have space because we're on holiday, so we're physically removed from our daily environment, so you see things more clearly. You have more time on the calendar, work is less busy, there are no deadlines, the days are longer, so there's all this space for you to finally feel into, but what do I actually want? And if you want to come back from summer into September feeling sure about this is my direction and I'm going to go after it, I'm not going to wait another year, then I would really encourage you to join the Copilot, because this is where we tackle all those things, tackle your overthinking, and turn it into really confident next chapters. And this is also the room where truly self-led expats come together and they help each other to lead themselves at a bigger level and to move faster. And if you want to be part of that, I would love to welcome you. So take a look in the show notes. I will talk to you soon. Have a great day wherever you are. And goodbye from Miami.